Hi, this is Ray Naylor, and this is the Performing Songwriter. My guest today is Jae Yi, formerly Black Dress Jess, and she's originally from Maryland and is now in Pennsylvania. She's not only a fine songwriter, but she is earning her doctoral degree in psychology. She's a member of a new group that was formed, Knox Bridge. Another member of the group, Patty McCabe, is here today and will be singing with our guest. Welcome, Jae.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Well, thanks for coming. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm not really enjoying the chilliness outside, but other than that, things are going pretty well.
Well, wait till winter.
Oh, no, please don't remind me.
I wanted to ask you about how long you've been performing and songwriting.
Sure. So I started songwriting back in 2009 after a pretty significant personal loss, and kind of just went from there. Started going to open mics. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to ask you to do a song here.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So this song is called Devil River, and I think that's all I'm going to say about it. All right. There's a boy come from Whiskey City, I'm going to save his soul. There's a boy come from Whiskey City, I'm going to save his soul. Told me that this boy gon' make me cry. Oh, my mama done told me that this boy gon' make me cry. Oh, he did. Yes, he said his name was Jack and his eyes were blue like an ocean I'd never seen. I told him I never touched the sky. He said, well baby, if you just give me a ride, I will show you just what you've been missing. So let the boy ride into my life and he kept his word. Oh, he showed me the sky and the freedom I never known. But don't you know freedom carries a price, and the price he paid was to the king of lies and stole his mind. The devil river, well, it runs so clear, you don't know until you're up to your ears and you're screaming for a lifeline. Devil river, won't you let him go? You paid the price with his very own soul, and I love him, but I can't watch him die. Just an ocean disguising a river that flowed with lies. It took a while for me to realize up the sky he knew was just speculation about a freedom he had never known. The devil river, well, it runs so clear, you don't know until you're up to your ears and you're screaming for a lifeline. Devil river, won't you let him go? You paid the price with his very own soul, and I love Right.
That's a powerful song.
Thank you very much.
I was going to mention we met at a
Yeah.
Philadelphia Area Songwriters Alliance.
Yep.
And I've only heard 2 songs, but what I liked about your songs is not just the songs, but I could tell that you knew how to perform.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
You might have done that song. I'm not sure.
I did, yes.
Yeah, at the open
end
mic
one.
part.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I thought so. The topic for today, with both songwriting as well as performance, is storytelling.
Yes, definitely.
And I just want to say a couple things, and I'm going to get your thoughts on this.
Sure.
The first thing about a song is, I mean, other types of storytelling are movies, plays, books.
Poetry, yeah.
Yeah. A song, though, is on average 3 to 4 minutes long.
Exactly, yeah.
So there's really a need to tell the story, but also tell it in a very efficient way.
Very much.
And I thought what I'd start out with is one template for a story and how it might relate to a song.
Okay.
Did you ever see a romantic comedy?
Oh, sure.
They have the same template.
Yeah.
The first part is setting the scene and people fall in love and everything's hokey-dory. Mm-hmm. And then something happens.
Right.
It becomes a conflict, a situation.
Right.
And then by the end of the movie, it's resolved. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of one template of a story. A lot of stories are that way.
Right.
And one of the things I thought of, normally the first verse would be setting up the story. If you have any characters, talk about them, you talk about the situation.
Sure.
And do you ever notice that sometimes the second verse is the hardest to write?
Yeah, it's true. The beginning and the end of a story is always probably the most compelling parts of the story.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to capture the same kind of intensity of emotion in the middle of a story or a song. So yeah.
Well, one thing that I thought of is I think a lot of times we write the first verse and think, okay, let me expand upon what, like trying to express the opening, so to say,
Yeah.
and you try to do it in the second verse too. Mm-hmm. And I think that might be one reason why it's hard. The first verse should, I think, for the most part, should be the one to set the setting, talk about the characters.
Oh, sure.
The second verse could be what the issue, what the problem is, what the conflict is, what the people in the song, if it's about people, what they're now facing. If we use the story template,
Sure.
that doesn't mean every song has to follow that.
Right.
With the either the bridge or the third verse, kind of is resolving it all.
Sure.
So anyway, I want to get your opinion, your thoughts on how to tell stories in songs.
No, definitely. Like you said, I agree with what you're saying about how because the format of a song necessitates the length to be just like 3 or 4 minutes, it's really important to be efficient. You're trying to condense an entire series of events and emotions into one very small space.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I think for me, I mean, I'm so tickled by this question, and I'm tickled in general to be recognized as a songwriter. I consider myself really just a poet who happens to play guitar. I have this background in poetry and like short fiction. Mm-hmm. But for me, the main component of a story, like the meat of it, the substance, is the emotion. Right. And I feel like at the end of the day, if the emotion is what resonates with the audience, because at the end of the day, we as musicians and songwriters, we're trying to connect with the audience. It's
Mm-hmm.
all about the connection.
Right.
If the driving if the emotion that's driving the song resonates with the audience, I feel like the story just kind of unfolds. Mm-hmm.
I think you're right.
Yeah, that seems to be the most critical piece.
Just a couple other things I was thinking of. The need to focus on the one idea that the story's trying to tell.
Okay.
You don't have enough room for subplots. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Let's see what else here. Thank God for Google.
Yes.
I don't necessarily think of all this stuff myself.
Google's going to take over the world.
And a story, well, we kind of already said this, a story that has a closure at the end of the song.
Sure.
And that's either the third verse or the bridge, or even the chorus, even if it's the same thing.
Right.
In fact, the song I'm going to do, kind of the chorus, even though it's the same as through the whole song,
Sure.
because it follows the third verse, it kind of takes on a slightly different meaning, you know.
Okay.
And other things in terms of stories. Again, this is what you just said. In terms of emotions, the feel, how you feel,
Absolutely.
touch, listen, that kind of stuff. Visualizing pictures, which we talked about in the last show, in terms of like painting pictures and songs.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, I'm going to do this song. Like a lot of these things, I'm learning some old songs I used to write
Okay.
for this. And I screw them up almost every time, but that's okay.
That's totally fine.
I used to be I used to internet date.
Okay.
In fact, I met my wife.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, but
That's
I went
great.
through a long time, you know,
Yeah.
and while this does not apply, I don't think I know it doesn't apply to the majority of women. There are some women that want somebody that has a lot of money or has
Oh, looking for a sugar daddy.
a sugar daddy, and usually there are code words like I'm looking for someone that's accomplished.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is about a guy who goes out on internet dates, and his dates kind of like become uninterested once they find out he didn't have a great job or whatever.
I'm excited already.
Now, Woody Guthrie wrote a song called Do Re Mi. You familiar with that?
No, I'm not. No.
It's about he wrote it in the 30s when they had the Dust Bowl,
Oh, okay.
and people would leave the Dust Bowl because their farms they couldn't farm anymore,
Okay.
and went to California where they heard there was a lot of jobs.
Okay.
And some people were turned away at the border because they didn't have any money and they didn't want all these poor people in their state. There was probably, you know, and so the song's called Do Re Mi. You don't have the Do Re Mi.
Okay.
So it's the same title. Do Re Mi. I search for my soulmate online in hopes that someday I might find someone who would love me, maybe even wed. When I met her for a beer, her face screamed, "Get me out of here. I'd rather be alone, or maybe dead." But before she left, this is what she said: "Oh, you ain't got that do-re-mi, boy. You ain't got that do-re-mi. Don't call me on the phone or send me emails, 'cause you never have another date with me. And don't think we'll be lovers, it won't happen. It'll never be more than your fantasy. So unless you win the lottery, there's nothing you can do for me if you ain't got that do-re-mi." So I thought I'd give it one more shot, maybe find somebody hot. Not a lifelong romance, but a short-term pleasure ride. Now she had a long scar down her face, but what the hell, I couldn't wait. When I asked her for a date, she just sat and cried. I said, "Baby, tell me why." She said, "You ain't got that do-re-mi, boy. You ain't got that do-re-mi. And don't call me on the phone or send me emails, 'cause you never have another date with me. Don't think we'll be lovers, it won't happen. It'll never be more than your fantasy. So unless you win the lottery, there's nothing you can do for me if you ain't got that do-re-mi." So I've given up the internet. Why throw good money on a long shot bet? I'll take care of myself. I'll just bid my time. No more wishing on a fading star. I'll sit at home and I'll play guitar, 'cause I won't hear another time. And I won't have to hear somebody whine. "Oh, you ain't got that do-re-mi, boy. You ain't got that do-re-mi. Don't call me on the phone or send me emails, 'cause you'd never have another date with me. Don't think we'll be lovers, it won't happen. It'll never be more than your fantasy. So unless you win the lottery, there's nothing you can do for me if you ain't got that do-re-mi. So unless you win the lottery, there's nothing you can do for me if you ain't got that do-re-mi. Hey Ray, you ain't got that dough for me.
Oh, it's such a sad story.
Well, what I wanted to say about that song is the first verse, actually the first half of the first verse sets it up. You know, I'm looking for an internet date. Then the second part of the first verse and the second verse is the conflict, the situation that was presented that's difficult. And the third verse, the resolution. I'm not doing this anymore.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. We have our Skype interview now.
Okay.
And our Skype guest is Steve Bryant, who was a host on QVC.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's retired now, lives in California.
I wonder if he misses it, being a host on QVC.
I don't know. He also did a bunch of different infomercials.
Oh, okay.
One thing was a guitar. I can't think of the guy who played. It was selling these guitars, you know, and a training or something like that.
Okay.
How to play guitar.
Cool.
So anyway, and Steve's a good songwriter. He's funny. He's a really good guitar player.
Cool.
So we'll be back, but we'll listen to this and watch it right now. Steve Bryant. My guest today is Steve Bryant from Auburn, California. He's a songwriter who knows how to tell a story. As one of the all-time top hosts on QVC, Steve knows how to perform in front of an audience. Steve is also accomplished on the guitar. In addition to working for QVC for a number of years, Steve worked as Vice President of Sales and Programming on Scripps Networks and was speaker on some of the most successful infomercials and has also worked in radio. And I'd like to welcome Steve Bryant. Steve, how you doing?
Ray, good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, I'm so glad that you got back to me so that we can we can do this. I was going to ask you to talk a little bit about your history of music, your songwriting, and your performing.
Okay. Well, I grew up on a little farm in South Jersey. You know, there's a sharecropper story in here somewhere, but I'll let that go. Anyway, we had a horse ranch and farm in southern New Jersey. And we're sort of out back then in the 50s in the middle of nowhere. So I was fascinated by the guitar, and I got this Sears Silvertone guitar and started to play it, but I was fascinated by all these old, what were used to be called race records, all these old 78s by black blues legends that were recorded on their own labels. And I used to listen to them, and I used to try to copy what they played, and I got pretty good at it. And in fact, I have a huge fret span on the guitar because of it, because when I was like 9 and 10 years old and learning this, I didn't know these guys were using alternate tunings to accomplish what they were doing. Like, how the heck is he getting his fingers out here? But so anyway, so that was the beginning. Bought a lot of the early Folkways books. Actually, I think I have Happy Traum's first ever instructional book back from 1967 on fingerpicking. I still have it. It had an incredible teacher. But I started there, and music was always important. Obviously, then here come the 60s, and everybody's writing songs, even my dog. Everybody's writing songs. And I started writing songs, and after I went through high school, I became a music major in college. I majored in theory and composition for years and years and more years than I like to think about. Did that, and of course, you learn the rules of the 16th century counterpoint and all the classical things, and I was always the odd man out in class because when everybody else is writing sonatas, I'm writing pop songs, and the professor kind of pulling his or her hair out, depending on who it was. But I did write a few classical pieces. I actually wrote a piece that was performed at Lincoln Center. I'm very proud of it. I won some student competition, and the New York Philharmonic played my piece called Sonata My Fault. And very proud of that. But obviously, a little more whimsical than the average classical person. Well, anyway, I get out of college and realize I have all this musical background. Now I have to earn a living. So I decided, okay, I better do something. I got a job as an audio producer with an advertising agency because I knew a lot about recording. We started with the basic, TAC 40-40s, the old 4-track reel-to-reel recorders in college, and then graduated to the 80-8, et cetera, all analog, but all reel-to-reel. And did a lot of jingles and told the folks at the advertising agency, hey, I can write. So they tried me out on a few things, and it really worked. The agency split, went from Philadelphia to half of it went to Atlanta. I went with the half that went to Atlanta, and wound up writing jingles for the likes of Coca-Cola, for the likes of IBM, for lots and lots of companies, and doing other commercials as well. I was sort of the Don Draper of the 1980s, sans the womanizing and booze. So did a lot in that, and then music kind of went a little bit to the side because I became creative director of this big deal advertising agency and all the responsibilities that came with it. And eventually I'd had enough and saw this ad for QVC. It said, can you talk on the air? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I had been doing things for then radio host Ken Garland. I actually did a lot of bits, comedy bits and parodies and things for his show when he was on WIP and then later on WPEN before he passed away. So I auditioned for QVC. I wound up staying there for 15 years, but music was always an important part. We actually did a Christmas CD of all the hosts because a lot of the hosts had musical talent, and they put an original song of mine on there that I happened to own the publishing to. And the CD sold over 100,000 copies. So I did just fine, thank you, on the Christmas CD. But, you get waylaid along the way and you don't think about it. So fast forward to today when I'm 63. Back in January, I retired and I said, you know what? I wrote a lot of jingles. They were successful. And I wrote a lot of commercials and they were successful. But I think I'm a serious songwriter. Let me find out. So I'm writing some serious songs. Most of them wind up in the genre of country music. And a lot of them, actually 3 of them right now, 3 of the most recent are being heavily pitched in Nashville and getting some pretty good response. Nothing in writing so far, but pretty good response.
Okay. We have our topic today is using storytelling techniques, not both in songs as well as the performance itself. And you have a really cool blog. You have all kinds of stuff that you've talked about, and one of them was entitled "A Song to Tell a Story." So I thought, you'd be the perfect person to answer. So I guess my question would be, how do you do that? How do you take a 3.5-4 minute song on average and tell a whole story? It's not a movie. It's not a novel or a play. You only got a short amount of time to do it. So if you could just talk a little bit about that, how you do that, and that'd be great.
Sure. I was pretty heavily influenced as a songwriter by Jim Croce. And I was lucky enough to meet and get to know his producer, Tommy West. And Tommy said Jim's first album, the first album he did with Ingrid, his then wife, failed miserably. And it just laid there, didn't do anything. And eventually, Tommy and other people went to Jim and said, you have to start telling the truth in your songs. Just start telling the truth. Write about what you know. Write about what you know and tell a story. And that whole story thing is what grabbed me. Any story has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, in a novel, you've got 100,000 or maybe more words to work with to get that story in. In a short story, you've got maybe 3,000, maybe 5,000 words to do it. But again, it's the same deal. Beginning, middle, and end. I was fortunate enough when I was at QVC to be able to interview the late, incredible Don Hewitt, the man who created 60 Minutes. And Don's edict in anything that 60 Minutes did was tell me a story. I don't care if it's a 90-second little bumper or a little humorous piece, or if it's a full-blown 20-minute feature story. Tell me a story. And that's what I always strived to do, is to have a beginning, a middle, and a lot of songwriters, myself included, often forget the story has to have an end. It has to have a conclusion. And if you get those three elements, and a lot of times, actually, I've written one song called Booty Call it's 5 minutes and 20 seconds long. That's the demo. When I wrote it, it was about 9 minutes long. I couldn't edit it anymore. I said, you know what? It's an album cut at best. I'm just gonna go with it because I can't trim it down. But a lot of times I'll write a song and I'll realize, oh my God, I've just rewritten War and Peace. This is giant. This might not fit on, if it were still in the days of albums, this wouldn't fit on an album side. I better bring this down. So editing is crucial, but that beginning, middle, and end part is the absolute, for me, the crux of creating a good song.
The one thing that I thought of is, romantic comedies, they're all the same, but they have that template, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Eventually, they have the conflict in the middle, and then eventually gets resolved.
Exactly.
And they live happily ever after. Steve, do a song for us.
Okay. This is a song in the vein of telling the truth. I met a woman one time, and she was older, actually older than I, which makes her really older. She was just getting into her 80s. And she was talking about the fact that her father, she was always the apple of her father's eye, and she felt like she had disappointed him her whole life. She said, my marriage was a failure, I never had a great job, and I just, he passed away, and it just, she said, it kills me. And and talking with her, I said, there's a story here. And I thought about, okay, I need a beginning. And I made some notes. Another important part about writing any song is keeping a journal. Write down every thought you have. Every thought. Even if you say, I have a great memory. No, you don't. I'm 63. I have no memory. But even when I was 33, I had a pretty terrible memory. Write it down. Get it in a journal. Because someday you may be able to lift that. So I just noted her story down. Apple of her daddy's eye was a phrase that came out of that. And one day I was in Philadelphia, in Center City, and it was a cold, miserable day. It was snowing and raining, and there was a homeless guy on a steam grate trying to keep warm. And he looked at me and said, hey, can you help me out, buddy? And so I gave him some money. And then Ray, he looked right at me and said, can you take me home? That always kind of chokes me up because obviously I didn't take him home. I gave him some more money. I asked him, I said, can I get you to a shelter? Can I do anything? And he said, you can take me home. And I thought, oh boy. So born out of guilt and the realization that most of us are a couple of paychecks away from being that guy on the steam grate. And most of us probably have disappointments in our lives, especially with our parents. This song called Take Me Home came out of it. The old man sat in the pouring rain. There's no wrinkles, hid the pain. Was a time when he had a wife, couple kids, what passed for life. No one sees him day after day, like he isn't there. If you listen, you'll hear him pray, ask for someone to care. Take me home, take me home. I need a place I can call my own. Take me home, take me home. Oh, Jesus, take me home. She was the apple Her daddy's eye, the strongest link, no one saw her cry. Always looking for something to last, tried for meaning before her life passed. No one sees her day after day, it's like she isn't there. If you listen, you'll hear her pray, ask for someone to care. Take me home, take me home. I need a place I can call my own. Take me home, take me home. Lord Jesus, take me home. I'm pretty average, a little too sad, far from perfect, more good than bad. Fought the good fight, I've won and I've lost. Now I'm over 60 wondering what was the cost. No one sees me day after day, it's like I'm just not there. If you listen, you'll hear me pray, ask for someone to care. Take me home, take me home. I need a place to call my own. Take me home, take me home. Lord Jesus, take me home, take me home.
Yeah, it's interesting how you use "Take Me Home to Heaven" as opposed to "Take Me Home to your house."
There's a lot more room in heaven, I think.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
That is obviously my story, and that's how I figured to end it. End it with, okay, here's the writer's perspective. Here's how I feel that, I'm kind of, like most of us, the invisible person, but I still need to go home, whatever that home spiritually, faithfully means to me.
And the other thing is that, part of storytelling is character development, which what you did in that song, as well as it was the first person, as opposed to saying he or they, or, you know what I'm saying? It makes it more personal, I think. Now I want to talk a little bit about storytelling in performance, and I don't mean necessarily that the performance is a story, but rather some of the skills, like you said, beginning, the middle, the end, as opposed to a string of songs. Yes. Pacing, body language, things like that. So how have you, and someone like yourself who's had the experience, QVC, for example, where you have to perform, what you've learned over all that times in terms of storytelling songs, techniques that would be relevant to a musical performance?
Well, in a live performance, and it's pretty obvious who the good storytellers are and who they're not. One of the things I miss about living in California now is the Philadelphia Folk Festival, because what a phenomenal amalgamation of storytellers they put up on those stages in different musical genres throughout those many days. It was always amazing to me. I always remember, and I think it was Josh White. I think, but it was a blues guy, and he played a 12-string, and I always remember his quote, because he played finger style on this 12-string, and he said, "Man, this is like finger picking a caterpillar." And I thought, yes, it is. Yes, it is. But he started off one particular part of his set by talking about snakes. And he said, people in my part of the world much rather see a vicious man-eating tiger come down the street than a little 2-foot snake. And he did a song about the snake, but he was able to weave the next song, although it wasn't about snakes, into like he caught a little tag into that about fear. Like, okay, that song was about people that are terrified of coming upon a snake. Well, here's a song about fear, but fear of a different kind. And then after that song, something in that song he grabbed onto and took that. So I've borrowed that technique from time to time when I do a live performance, and one song will linchpin into another, that there'll be some commonality between the two. Whereas once you get 3 songs away, you probably have nothing to do with what that first song was about. Mm-hmm. But it does have something to do with the song right before it, and it'll have something to do with the song right after it. And that's an amazing technique. That works so well. And the audience, in the days of, we live in the times of attention deficit disorder, where good luck trying to get people to listen to your songs today. But if there's some connecting element, and they say, well, wait a minute, where was that? What was that going to do? And what was going to happen? I always remember, you'll get a kick out of this. I was fired when I was in college. I got a job in radio in Atlantic City. And I was fired. It's probably a world's record. I was fired less than 3 minutes after I started, because the first song I played, and the only reason this radio station hired me, the radio station was in a trailer in Atlantic City in 1971. So here's an idea, real high-class operation. AM radio station in a trailer. They hired me because I had a big record collection, and they wanted to play progressive music on AM radio. And in 71, that's not a bad idea, give it a whirl. So I came in, the first song I opened with, Ray, as an incredible, as you are an incredible interpreter of Phil Ochs songs and a huge Phil Ochs fan, the first song I opened with was Outside of a Small Circle of Friends. Well, when he got to the line where smoking marijuana is more fun than drinking beer, the old lady that owned the station virtually kicked the door in, came in and started to let loose with all these 4-word expletives. I was an effing hippie. You get out of here. I don't have drug music. I said, it's not a drug song. It's an evidence. You didn't care. I had to get out. The little fun I had was I left the mic open while she came in, so she had a lot of explaining to do. That
was good.
But anyway, that's just an aside. But the whole storytelling element to me, I mean, Phil Ochs is a perfect example of that. It tells a story. It has, and listen, Outside of a Small Circle of Friends, there's definitely a beginning, there's definitely a middle, there's definitely an end to that song. It's not an obvious end, but it definitely wraps it, puts a nice little bow on it, ties it off, and walk away.
Okay, why don't we hear another tune here?
Okay. This one, just for sake, full disclosure, I have a lyric sheet in front of me. This is going to be the next song. I'm really lucky. We get a moment, we'll chat about this. I'm cutting the demos in Nashville, and I'm also smart enough not to use my own voice on the demos. Ray, there are men and women in Nashville that could sing me under the table underwater. I mean, they're just so good. The musicians there are so good. So I'm doing the demo thing in Nashville, and I can't wait to see who we wind up deciding to sing this song. But this is called An Older But Wiser Kind of Guy, and it's a song that meant a lot to me as I wrote it, as it's age 63. All right. I used to do it all night. Now it takes all night to do. I never ate before 7. Now I'm chowing down at 2. And I avoid the prime rib because it's just too hard to chew. I'm an older, but wiser kind of guy. I have wrinkles everywhere, someplace where wrinkles shouldn't be. AARP has been after me since I was 43. And it takes about an hour every time I pee. I'm an older, but wiser kind of guy. I get discounts everywhere I go. So where were they when I was making real dough? And there's a special bus for every grandpa and gram. I'd take it, but sometimes I forget where I am. I bought myself an iPhone. Can't work the thing at all. Doesn't really matter, because I never get a call. And my belly's getting bigger, but my bladder is so small. I'm an older, but wiser kind of guy. I have a special doctor. He's a geriatric whiz. And I'll go to see him as soon as I remember who he is. My memory's not that bad, but I hope there's not a quiz. I'm an older but wiser kind of guy. My fashion sense is suffering. I wear a lot of flannel. And I watch way too much TV these days, mostly Fox News and the Weather Channel. Well, there are dating services for people who survive. You know, I'd like to try them, but I think my wife is still alive. And if it's more than 2 blocks, well, you know I'm gonna drive. I'm an older, but wiser kind of guy. Sex used to be a special thing. Sex used to be a special thing. We had it all the time. Now it's every other birthday. Guess any more would be a crime. She used to like it on top. Now she just can't make the climb. I'm an older but wiser kind of guy. I'm above ground, pretty sure I'm alive, and pretty happy about it. It's a big deal, I want to tell the whole world, but I don't have the breath to shout about it. Well, some say that I'm an old fart. My time is fading fast. Tell me everything is failing and I'm running out of gas. But I'm still strong enough to tell them to shove it up their ass. I'm an old but wiser, just an older but wiser, an older but wiser kind of guy.
That's funny.
Thank you.
It's a lot of people have a hard time writing a funny song, you know.
It's interesting because one thing in my career, I have done, no exaggeration, hundreds of song parodies, and I'm proud to say many of them were picked up. I had to get rights and do all that stuff, but many were played by Fox News, by MSNBC. I think it's pretty funny. Fox News thinks I'm a conservative, and MSNBC thinks I'm a liberal, and I'm a moderate. So I got them both pulled. But a lot of song parodies, and the first rule, I wrote a whole list of rules for song parodies, and the first rule is, rule number 1, be funny. Rule number 2, reread rule number 1. Because so many people who do parodies just tell the story, which is in humor, and you nailed it, it's not enough. Tell the story and be funny at the same time.
Well, in fact, on this show, I sang a song called, Do Re Mi, which is Woody Guthrie's song.
Yes, if you got the Do Re Mi.
But a parody, and it's about a guy that's trying to internet date. Every time you meet somebody, they say you don't have enough money, so you don't have the Do Re Mi.
That's funny.
So,
I love to hear that. You do quite a term with a funny song. Your Frosty the Bipolar Bear, I think is hysterical. I think that's great. That's on my iPod.
I have to relearn that one. What I wanted to say, I went to your YouTube channel, and you have a number of videos, and several of them are songs that you're shopping in Nashville. And
yes.
What I wanted to say is, if you try to successfully shop a song these days, the demo has to be like it's on a record. And these definitely are. And I would encourage people to go to your YouTube page and check those out if they're thinking about shopping a song.
Well, thank you. I take a lot of pride in that, and you're absolutely right. There's so much competition today that a simple guitar and voice demo, I mean, that might have worked in the 60s, maybe in the 70s, but now it's got to be done. And that's why I said I'm using some of the top folks in Nashville. I use a producer named Rick Dixon. He's just a great guy. And I'm very fortunate. When I lived in Nashville for 8 years, and I got to know a lot of people, and I actually got to know the guys who were in Carrie Underwood's band. And many times, if they're in the studio, they'll just lay something down for me. I think that's great. I loaned them my 12-string once, and I think they never forgot it, so bless their heart.
Well, they sound great, really. They sound great. I wanted to ask you, somebody wants to learn about you, learn about your music. What's the best way to do that?
Well, I have, I guess, musically, you can find me on SoundClick at soundclick.com/ Steve Bryant, one word, all lowercase. Soundclick.com, Steve Bryant. I have about 140 songs and parodies or so up on SoundClick. And that SoundClick has two services, and it's only $10 a month, and it's for $10 a month, you get unlimited storage, and plus they store your song at 320K, so they sound pretty good. So soundclick.com, search Steve Bryant, or just soundclick.com/Steve Bryant. Also, you can friend me on Facebook. A lot of times I share, most of the time I'll share a new song on Facebook, and that's Steve Bryant Radio on Facebook. Or just search Steve Bryant. You'll usually find me. And if you're going to friend me, mention Ray. Mention Ray. Because everybody will get a free, mention Ray. Because of the infomercials and because of QVC, a lot of people that want to friend me that I just would rather not bother with. But if you mention Ray, I'll friend you immediately. So that's cool. So there, and as you said on YouTube, I've had that YouTube account forever under the name Steel String Slider, but I use my own name too. I mean, it's pretty obvious. You can't say, "Oh, I'm somebody else," and then there's your video on YouTube.
And you have that link to your blog page on
yes.
on Facebook, and people should check that out. It's cool.
Yeah, SteveBryantBlog.com is my blog, and there's about like 38 different musings, a lot of things about music. One blog in particular about the world of country music, which, boy, there's a great song, and I apologize, I cannot remember who wrote it. There's a great song called Murder on Music Row. And that pretty much sums up what's happening in the world of country music today. It's a lot of country music. I don't know what it is, but it ain't the country music that I know.
Yeah. Well, Steve, I want to appreciate you coming on. Thanks a lot. And it's great to hear your songs and your insight into what we talked about. Thanks a lot.
Ray, thank you. Thank you for all you do for the musical world. You do a lot, my friend, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Hope to see you in person soon.
Okay, we'll see you. Okay. Let me shut this off first. There we go.
Good deal.
I want to thank Steve Bryant for being the Skype guest today. Okay, I'm going to ask you to do your next song.
Sure, absolutely. So this song is called Sitting with Johnny, and I want to dedicate it to all the brave men and women who fight and have fought for our freedom.
Okay.
All right. Johnny seems like a man without a single lick of gumption. He wears a coward's sickly smile and dreams all the while of redemption. He drowns himself in wild women and whiskey's sweet seduction. See, Johnny was once a man with glorious dreams and an arrow's straight direction. He wore a soldier's proud beret and marched proudly on his way to revolution. And though he knew death, knew him too, he just prayed for God's protection. What can we do for the soldiers who broke in two? The ones who came back home with memories they wanna lose. What do we do when the ones who fight and bleed so we can all be free come back with hearts so heavy and their minds so bruised? So now Johnny's got this wary eye. He'll watch the doors real close and scrutinize all the patrons. When the bar gets loud, his whole face shuts down and he hits empty air when he goes for his weapon. Then he'll smile at you, crack a joke or two, then turn his face to hide his shocked expression. Well, hey Johnny, can I sit with you? Smoke a smoke or two as you watch your own reflection. I want to shake your shaking hand and thank you for your service to our nation, and just sit with you as you drink your way through your growing desperation. Well, what can we do for the soldiers who broke into? The ones who came back home with memories they wanna lose. What do we do when the ones who fight and bleed so we can all be free come back with hearts so heavy and their minds so bruised? See, I'm not much for politics, whether war is right or wrong, or if we need a revolution. I'm just the one who sits with people through pain and grief and self-flagellation until they fight their way some far-off day to an acceptable kind of resolution. So what can I do for the soldiers who broke into? The ones who came back home with memories they wanna lose. What do I do when the ones who fight and bleed so we can all be free come back with hearts so heavy and their minds so bruised? Their hearts so heavy and their minds so very bruised. Their hearts so heavy and their minds so very bruised.
That's a very moving song.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anything you might, I would think that's kind of a song you might be able to do something with in terms of like veterans groups and things like that.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope to be given an opportunity to do that.
That would be a great song for a music video.
Oh.
You know, you could do some really cool stuff with that, I think.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, you know what? I can see it already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about storytelling as it relates to a performance.
Okay.
What I don't mean is that you have to tell a story, one story through the
Okay,
whole
good. I
performance.
wasn't ready for that.
Now, although there are some people that did that. There's a guy named Will Kaufman who's American but lives in England. He was on my previous show. He was in the country. And he put together a whole thing on Woody Guthrie where he talked about his life, sang his songs,
Okay.
and even had a slideshow in the back when he was doing this kind of thing.
Okay.
But there are skills to storytelling.
Absolutely.
And for example, one thing that we kind of talked about in another show is how you pace the show, and pacing is very important in storytelling.
Sure.
So there's not. So in other words, there's a whole to it.
Yeah.
Instead of just a bunch of songs stringed together.
Right. Right.
And the last song that you sing, I would think would have a certain touch that you want to, that kind of ends, that kind of concludes, puts the closing on the whole performance.
Oh, sure.
So any thoughts on all that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think. See, for me, it always goes back to emotion. I don't know if I'm revealing myself as a, psychology nerd or just human. No, I'm just revealing myself as human. I think that it's really important to, when you're performing a song, to show the audience your own personal emotional connection to the song, because that's the whole reason why you wrote the song in the first place. Right. And so. Yeah, I think that's really important. I think that it's important to stay relaxed and I think I was looking up that articulating the words, is also really important too, so that people
Yes,
can
exactly.
understand what you're saying. There you go. Yeah.
We probably looked the same Google
Probably.
page.
We found the same website.
Absolutely. And body language,
Yes, exactly.
which we talked about a couple times ago,
Yeah.
things like that. And it kind of all comes down to the same thing, to connect with the audience.
Yes, exactly. That's the main thing. Yes.
And I think if when we're writing, not just writing songs but also performing, if we learn a couple skills that storytellers used to get their, and that's a hard thing to do. Tell a story and make it interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I've heard storytellers that, wow, this is really good.
Yeah.
Other storytellers, it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to be able to perform that, and it's the same. I think it's the same with music.
Yeah, and I think eye contact is also really important. You want to connect with the audience that way.
Right.
But that's something I'm still working on. Sometimes with some songs that I perform, it's like it's a particularly emotional experience, so I have to kind of keep my eyes closed. But I do want to see how the listeners are reacting to the song.
Right. And the other thing is practicing. You're not just the songs, but the performer, at least thinking about how you want it to run.
Yes.
And
Yes.
some people do practice that, and that's not a bad idea.
I agree. And I think that that's a really important word that you're using here, practice. Like, I think maybe some people who are beginning songwriters and beginning musicians might think that, oh, these people seem so confident and that must have happened overnight, or they must have been born with it. But that's not true. Like, how you present yourself on stage is a skill like any other, and it's something that can be practiced.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we could all, encourage people to think, do some Googling.
Yeah.
And
Google is your friend.
and learn about some skills of storytellers, and see if you can incorporate, if it makes sense, to use some of that stuff in your songwriting and in your performances.
Yeah, and not just reading. I mean, reading about it is important too, but watch a lot of videos.
Exactly.
Of musicians that you admire. I definitely have like a set, list of people who I love to watch because they're fantastic performers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Now, you're in a new group.
Yes, I am.
Knox Bridge, did I get
excited.
that right?
Yes, yep.
Okay. And we have one of your members here today.
Yes, Patty McCabe.
And I'm going to have you introduce her. We're going to switch chairs here. So while we're doing that, I'm going to ask you to talk about the group, how it formed, that type of stuff.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi there. I'm Naylor, formerly known as Jae Yi, formerly known as Black Dress Jess. And I'm just kidding. So as Ray was saying, I recently joined forces with a couple of people to form Knox Bridge. And so I'm very, very excited to introduce one of my bandmates, Patty McCabe, who is a fantastic singer-songwriter. And so we've been playing together for about a year.
About a year, yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't really start, form this identity as a band until like pretty recently, like a couple weeks ago, or maybe like a month ago.
Yeah, well, we finally found a band name, and that was helpful.
Yes, that's always helpful.
And then something happened when we got the band name. It was like, now we're really a group.
Exactly.
Now, instead of being, two separate songwriters
Exactly.
joining forces,
Yeah.
then now we're a group.
Yeah.
It's great.
So I'm very excited to introduce my bandmate, Patty McCabe. So why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself as a songwriter?
Okay.
And
Well, I've
person?
been playing guitar since I was 11. Singing since my mother said before I could speak. So music, I grew up with music, and guitar ended up being the instrument of choice.
Yeah.
And I guess about 5 years ago, after, family things were sort of, work stuff was a little bit more on the back burner, I started writing a lot of music.
Mm.
And my brother passed away, and I sort of started looking at my mortality and went, now's the time. And I've written probably around 40 songs that I've actually written down, and I'm continually inspired to write music all the time.
Yeah.
And
It's a compulsion, I think.
yeah, and Jess and I met, I guess, at my open mic that I was running.
Yes. When was
The
that?
Rock,
That was like
2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
And we fell in love with each other's music.
Yeah.
And now we're doing harmonies and accompanying. And then we had other musicians that said, we want we want to be with you, and that's kind of how it formed. So everybody is an accomplished musician, and we're having a great time.
So Knox Bridge represents your music and my music, and we are supported by some fantastic musicians. We've got Stu O'Connor, who plays acoustic lead. We've got Greg Pucci on bass, and Frank Sophia on electric lead, and Rick Williamson Jr. on percussion. And when the six of us are together on a stage, it's just this magical thing. So
it's all really about the magic.
Yeah. So I just want to ask you, I guess just a couple questions about some of the stuff that Ray and I were talking about in terms of performing and songwriting and storytelling. I guess the thing I'm particularly curious about is what kind of things helped you to develop your style as a performer?
Well, it's kind of a process that happened. I never took a songwriting course, and I would be sort of inspired by something, and the songs would come out, and they were purely based on emotion.
Yeah. And
since I was always listening to music, there were instinctual guidelines that I had because of, being a music lover. And then eventually I took a songwriting course and found out that a lot of my songs really don't fit the traditional structure.
Yeah.
And the song we're going to do in a little bit it has no structure whatsoever. I apologize. But this one came from my soul. And when they come like that, it's never a task to write.
Right. Or to perform.
And
that's
one easy. It just flows like water.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that really captured my that's one of the reasons why I fell so hard for your music.
Yeah, right back at you.
Yeah, it's because when I watched you perform, I was like, man, she's really feeling the entire song.
Yeah.
So that was really important for me to see. And your songs are incredible. And we're about to play one of them. So this song is...
this song is sort of about a reawakening, and I'm going to let you sort of judge where it fits for you. Many of the songs that I write are pretty much based on emotion, and I'm looking almost for the listener to finish the story. Where is their relevance in the song, and do they feel heartfelt about the song, and is there a message in the song for them? And I think that if you have 10 people in a room and they all listen to the same song, they may get a little bit something different out of it.
Yeah, that's very true. So this is the river.
This is the river.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. I know your weary heart, it grows heavy, and you go on and on and don't know why. And the things you thought you lived your life for passed you by. So you try to find a direction, but everywhere you turn, it's all the same. And you try to make a connection, a different place, another name. So won't you meet me by the river? I'll be waiting just around the bend. There's a new moon on the river. We'll jump in. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Do 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 do.
na 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 na. You can take it fast, take it slow, stay on the bank or just let go. Take my hand, jump on in, either way. Sink or swim, jump on in. Sink or swim, jump on in. You can take it fast, take it slow, stay on the bank or just let go. Take my hand, won't you jump on in? Either way, sink or swim, jump on in. Sink or swim, jump on in. Na 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 na, jump on in. Sink or swim, na 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 na. Do 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 do. Na 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 na. As the sun rises on the river, see the sunlight shining through the trees. There's a bird singing on the morning breeze. Let its spirit set us free.
So, yeah, that I feel like so calm and relaxed right now. That last image
Yeah.
of the sun rising, and I
Yeah.
have this like impression of mist, and there's a bird singing. It just like creates this gorgeous image. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm in Ireland or something whenever I hear that line. So that's a gorgeous song.
Yeah, it brings you from, you're out by the river at night, and
Yeah.
you're deciding whether you're going to actually be who you are, or
Yeah.
or wash yourself clean in the river. The river is a big symbolic way to really tell people that you can get in and wash yourself clean. You can,
Yeah.
you
That's very
so
true.
that's sort of what the song's about.
Yeah. It's got a hopeful message.
Yeah, yeah.
So the next one,
Yes.
do you want to tell us a little bit about that one?
I'm in a recent relationship.
Woohoo!
You know how that is, a recent relationship.
Mhm.
And I really like this guy. And that's where this song came from. You know I got something to say to you. And it's so hard each time I try. Yeah, you know your kisses taste like sunshine. It brings a tear to my eye. And I wanna be, baby, I just wanna be loved. I wanna be, baby, I just wanna be loved. Well, it's been so long since I felt this way. I thought I'd never feel again. It makes me crazy, makes me wanna run away.
tell you I'm just your friend. But I wanna be, baby, I just wanna be loved. I wanna be, baby, I just wanna be loved by you. It's true. Ooh. So if you'll give me just a little time, I know I'll open up to you. I promise I'll give you everything. Know that I know what to do. And I wanna be, baby, I just wanna be loved. I wanna be, baby, I just wanna be loved.
Okay, that was great.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to ask you to say how can people contact you, learn about your music, so forth.
Absolutely. So you can find us at www.reverbnation.com/Knox Bridge Band.
Okay.
And yeah, we actually have a show coming up on the 18th at the New Leaf Cafe in Rosemont.
I was there the other day, open mic.
They have they have a really great open mic.
Mm-hmm.
I think the host's name is Adam.
Adam,
yep. And the really nice stage. So we're gonna have almost our full band. Hopefully, one of our bandmates can make it. But otherwise, it'll be the full band. And I just really wanted to just take a moment to thank you so much for inviting us here and for what you're doing here with, exposing people to who the local songwriters are and for all your hard work with us.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Definitely. And also for giving us an opportunity to, introduce people to Knox Bridge. So,
well, you're welcome. I want to talk about next show before we go here. Normally our guests are our studio guests are local like you are. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while we might have somebody coming through town, and which we do the next time, and his name is Bryant Ashley Jones.
Oh, okay.
He's from Nashville.
Oh, wow, all the way from Nashville.
Yeah,
That's
he has
exciting.
a bunch of CDs. He travels a lot, including Europe.
Mm-hmm.
He's gotten an award for his guitar playing.
Wow.
And so he's very good.
Fantastic.
And our Skype guest is, I want to get her name right, Nicole Belanis. Now, Nicole is involved with the Songwriters Association in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
And she just interviewed me for their blog. We did a Skype interview.
Oh, nice.
And it came out really well.
Great.
And she's also a very nice, very accomplished songwriter.
Fantastic.
So we're gonna
Sounds like an exciting show.
Yeah, we're gonna have her on the Skype.
The Skype, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Well, look, thanks again.
Thank you so much, Ray.
Okay. And we'll be back in a couple weeks.